Well, how about this off-season edition of the Cardinals Insider Podcast? Welcome in our Busch Stadium studios, Brett McMillan. You're used to Joe and Larry with us. Unfortunately, schedules just get in the way. They do so much with alumni. They may pop in now and again, but Elizabeth Meineke, the new co-host, riding with me on this program, and we're just going to get right to it, too. Glad to be joined by Rob Cerfolio. He is our new Assistant General Manager for Player Development and Performance. So, Rob, welcome to the organization. Welcome to St. Louis.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
And let's just start right there, man. You know, I like Cleveland. I think it's a great town. I think it's very similar to me to St. Louis, and I know the orgs are kind of thought of as similar too.
Yep.
So what's that been like for you? New place, a lot of new faces, but maybe some similarities in a way?
Yeah, new is the word that I think of. It's just adjusting, right? But you're right. Even the way the cities are structured with the downtown and a lot of people that live west suburbs, and that's where my family and I moved. There's a lot of similarities. I like that you get the big city feel when you're downtown, but when you're out in the burbs, like, you can have space and more family oriented. So very similar to Cleveland in that sense, which was great. As an Alabama guy, I never thought that I would have been as sad as I was leaving Cleveland, Ohio. And, it was a little more difficult for my wife, who's from the area and first time moving away from home. But just super grateful and gracious for Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff and those guys giving a former idiot player an opportunity coming right off the field that provided basically zero value to the organization when I first started, and just giving me an opportunity to take on more and more each year. I certainly wouldn't be here without those guys. So
I don't know if you're a foodie guy. I am. Some of the best barbecue I've had, and you were on this trip with me downtown. I forget the name of it.
Probably Mabel's.
Yeah.
That was
my
it.
gosh.
That was it.
Man,
yeah.
Now we got a pretty good, Kansas City gets all the hype. We got a pretty good barbecue scene here.
I've already had some good ones.
Yeah.
Patty's, I think, is the name of it, out near me. Pretty good.
There's some good Salt and Smoke across the street here.
Yep.
Sugar Fire, not a sponsor, but they're good over on Wash Ave. There's a lot of good spots. So,
awesome.
But that's one of my preeminent Cleveland memories, Elizabeth. I don't know.
I was actually thinking about that yesterday when we were preparing for the show today. I was like, what's the name of that barbecue restaurant that we went to in Cleveland? Because that was some good memories there. So
yeah, good place. That East 4th Strip you can have some fun on.
Yeah.
And I think we walked there from the team hotel too. So yeah, it was really some great memories there. I loved the stadium as well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a really great experience. So
yeah, they've done a good job just modernizing the player-facing areas, and they're redoing the whole clubhouse and offices, all that good stuff. So yeah, they've done a good job over there.
Well, I think we should probably qualify something that you mentioned earlier, though. You said, I think you phrased it as giving an idiot player a chance to step up. And I think we should probably mention a little bit more of your background, because I think you were taking a very modest track with that. So you did go to Yale, right?
They had to take a kid from Alabama every year, but yes, I did go there, which was great.
What was the hardest class you took at Yale?
Organic chemistry. Okay. I was a pre-med. I was pre-med as an undergrad, so that was really the plan after however long playing took me. I wanted to go to med school. Actually, right before I took my internship with the Guardians, I had gotten hurt. Long story short, I was trying to figure out, should I go back to spring training? Should I just get on with my life as a 34th rounder? It was pretty clear to me that the organizational investment in my future opportunities was probably lighter than that of like a Cody Bellinger, who was in the same draft class as me. So really, I thought the whole time I was going to go to med school. My whole family is from medicine. My dad's a doctor. My mom is a nurse, and so I took my MCAT and had applied, and really that's what I thought I was going to do. But organic chemistry, to answer your question, was the class that I was just fighting and scratching and clawing and doing anything I could to keep my head above water. So it was certainly part of that issue was the incredible intelligence of the average student in that class was probably a tick higher than where mine was, but was able to keep my head above water.
Hey, you made it through.
Correct.
Like, degrees are degrees, you know what I'm
Correct.
saying? I always do marvel, though. You think about the Ivy League and, like, the ability to not just survive there as a student, but as an athlete. I mean, it's not quite to the level of the service academies. West Point, like guys who play football, guys and gals who play other sports. I don't know how they do both.
Yeah.
Same thing with I don't know how you take the ball and pitch and also do organic chemistry. Is there a secret sauce to that?
No secret sauce. Same thing we tell our players, right? Like, you got to find a process and a routine and have like just some of those underlying, I'm going to get this job done no matter how good or ugly it looks. And yeah, I think on top of that, just having a good support system, and thankfully had some teammates that, helped me along the way, some older classmen, and was able to, get in with the right group for people that were in other sports that we just kind of came up with a little, I had a hockey friend and a couple female soccer players that we were all going through the same course load, and it was how can we just all adapt and survive, knowing that we got to run 200-meter shuttles at 6 a.m. for strength and conditioning work tomorrow, and we got a midterm exam in 2 days. So just finding people with like problems and trying to get in with the right crowd. Yeah.
Has that affected how you approach player development?
I think so. I mean, I'm a subscriber to the no stone unturned mentality, and just a lot of it comes from just the best teams that I've been lucky to be a part of, right? You have great players on those teams, but I also think from a culture standpoint, and I think this is one of the things that we did well in Cleveland, of bringing in players that had the right mentality and characteristics, whether that's how they were brought up or the programs they had been exposed to, but ultimately like player-led culture of accountability and high standards, and how we look when we show up to the ballpark matters. Like there are no little things, there's just things, and we need to be best in class at all of those things. And I think just trying to bring that mentality to how we develop players. You got to have talented players and players of the like mindset that your organization wants to embody, but then you got to be really deliberate about coaching that. And just every single staff member that we hire, we want them to have those beliefs. And like, if you scale that across 50, 60, 70, 100 people, and your players, like that's all they feel and know, then that's just becomes who they are. And I think just bringing like we're going to do everything we can to find the way to make you a better player and you a better player, like same process, even though we might be focused on very different things. But yeah, the no stone unturned, like no one's going to outwork us mentality is what I hope people say about what we're building here.
Well, what I hear in that too is like character and empathy, and like I've always felt working in the game, and there's a reason I'm sitting in this seat and not that one, because of some of the baseball stuff that I could not see that you do. But like I've always felt, the way that you treat the guys that are not going to make a 26-man roster matters, because that is a large totality of what's in your org at any given time. And I mean, you're an example of that, right? Like, I mean, baseball's been an important part of your life, even though you never played on that field.
Correct.
And I think that like guys respond to that, and it's always been to me something growing up here that's a part of being a Cardinal, is like how you treat people.
Yep.
And it sounds like it still is, and I think that that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things this org has done really well. There's a long list of things that I'm grateful to jump into and be able to leverage. Those are some of the things that were exciting to me about when I was just trying to think about, is this the right place? Is this the right transition? But the people, like, you just constantly hear how much people love having the two birds on the bat on their chest and what that means to them. And that's not true for every organization. And I think as a result, they have a lot of coaches, former players that contribute to the organization that a lot of teams don't have, and that's something I hope we can weaponize. But you're right, the empathy, being able to like really empathize with what a player is working through and the challenges that he's going to have to push through to accomplish whatever we're asking them to, matters. And from a coach development side, like those are things we want to teach.
Yeah, I think people don't often think about that, and I'm sure, Elizabeth, you see it too. Like, it's a workplace. I mean, the same way that any of us go to work, right? And we all want to enjoy the people we work with and work for, and that's always been kind of a part of the Cardinal way. And I think it's interesting that you talk about that. So let's get into a little bit of what you do, Rob, because we hear player development, player dev a lot get thrown around, and so I think our fans are familiar with it. I think they're less familiar with the concept of player performance. And my understanding is those were two separate things pre where we are right now, but they're coming together under you. So tell us what that looks like in a broad sense.
Sure. It's a hard thing to describe. So maybe the best way I'll try and do it is through like a story or an example.
That's perfect. We love stories.
So think of a 19-year-old high school draftee. They're obviously a baseball player. Like they've been coached on how they're going to swing and how they are going to field and et cetera. Like there's baseball skill. I think that's what your baseball coaches that are wearing baseball pants are teaching. They're teaching the skill of baseball. But how do you become a great hitter? How do you become a great defender? There are athleticism traits underneath, like, do you know how to swing a bat? Like there is rotational strength, there's rotational power, there's just strength and power in general, there's movement coordination, there's mental skills, there's nutrition, there's like a whole nother layer of things that impact performance out on the field. And I think when those two entities are talking and solving problems collaboratively as a single unit, the question for a 19-year-old, okay, in 4 years, how do we have this guy go from throwing 90 to 95? Some of that answer might be through how do we improve his delivery to be able to move faster down the rubber. But part of that also might be like, this player's just not strong currently, or he doesn't have his central nervous system doesn't know how to move fast yet. So we need to teach them some of the like performance or athleticism attributes that will allow that player to access more velocity. We're always working backwards from what do we want this player to do? Like the ideal best version of this 19-year-old we might not see for 4 years, but we have a plan. We have a vision for how we're going to get there. And then our job is to build a roadmap and to write that roadmap in pencil, be okay to come back and say, you know what, like those series of interventions or ideas weren't right. So let's erase them and do something different, even though our vision stays the same. But it's really trying to tackle those problems collectively. And instead of having people in baseball pants or people in the weight room kind of solving problems locally, they're talking to each other and they're aligned towards the same outcome we want to see on field, and then they're working together, and all of the programs that they're doing for that pitcher, whether he's throwing weighted balls on a pad behind field 5 or he's going through his prep routine in the weight room at 8 a.m. before the day starts, like ideally both of those programs are designed and kind of built collaboratively towards that outcome of velocity or fill in the blank outcome that you want the player to achieve.
Where does the mental skills portion of that fit into player development? Because, if you hear like Chris Carpenter or Adam Wainwright talk, so much of the game to them is how you approach it mentally and your preparation. Is that something from your perspective and your view, is that something that you can incorporate into player development, or is that something that each player just has to find what works for them and you just provide resources like talking with alumni or they'll talk to their teammates about it?
I mean, it's both. It's not can we, it's we will integrate that into our player development model. And it's thinking you have to train your brain as a muscle. You have to train your brain just like you train what you're doing in the gym, whatever. It's the exact same thing. So we want to have people and programs that are designed towards introducing these skills on the mental side. That could be anything from like just the belief in confidence or like a real mental performance skill of deep breath and calming your nervous system. Like there's a lot of different tools on that tool belt, but it is something that, especially when you talk to, or at least in my experience, and it sounds like former players have articulated similar things here, that oftentimes the very tip of the spear at the highest level, those are some of the biggest things that separate guys out, is just learning how to manage the noise, learning how to manage the extra media sessions, learning how to manage like having to deal with bad results in the face of the public that you just don't have to deal with when you're in AA and there's 13 people in the stands and one of them's me.
Cheering loudly though, right?
Never. No, I don't. I just sit there on mute actually most of the time, but it's a huge part of it. It's part of our performance umbrella. And again, no stone left unturned. It's something that we need to arm our players, and every player is not going to use that resource the same, but we want to have those resources available.
You're talking about being there, sitting, putting eyes on the players in the minor leagues leagues. And you were talking about the two sides kind of, dev and performance talking to each other. I think there's always this narrative that we kind of have. I don't know when it started in baseball that like analytics and the eye test don't get along. And I've never, in my experience, I feel like I've never seen that play out. Because we'll go to spring training in a couple weeks, and there'll be conference rooms of guys in baseball pants and guys in polo shirts, and they'll be looking at stuff together. And to me, that says, like, if not everybody pulls the rope in the same direction, you can't win, right? Is that a fair statement? Like, those things have to work together.
Yeah, I don't know who said this to me first, but which doctor would you rather go to? The doctor that is just going to use his hands and eyes, or the same doctor with an MRI machine? Like, they're still looking at the same... They're valuing the same things. They're just arming themselves with more information to make better decisions. Like, analytics is not capturing things that scouts weren't talking about 30 years ago. It's now actually just being able to quantitatively measure, does this guy have good bat speed or not, or does it look like he has good bat speed? They're different things, but they each complement each other, and there's information that you just can't quantify that are really important to have great scouts to be able to uncover. And there's things that it's just really hard for a scout to measure objectively and be able to say, is that really great relative to this other guy? Like, I don't know, those skills are hard to detangle. So like anything else, it's just the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. And just being evidence-based, and evidence is what your eyes see, and evidence is also how much did that pitch move to the 5th decimal point? Like, those are still pieces of information, and how do we weave them together to make the best hypothesis for what a player should be focused on?
5th decimal point, that's really interesting, because basically, like, the difference there, a pitch moving, right? Like, a 1/5 of a decimal point can be the difference between rolling over or putting the ball through the hole like a line drive. I mean, yeah. I think that sometimes is something fans don't always think about, and I don't even always think about, but that just a little bit, and that's what you guys are driving after, right? I mean, that 1/5 of a decimal point. It's crazy, like the way that the game, it really is a game of less than inches.
Yeah. We owe it to the player not to guess. That's what I tell our players all the time. We are going to be player-centric. We're going to put you at the front of our minds, and we owe it to you to arm ourselves with the best information and the best coaching that we can, so that we produce the most major league value for the organization. That's what's going to allow us to compete consistently.
Do you have a favorite player development story in your time working for a big league organization? I'm sure there are probably several, but are there a couple that maybe stick out to you, or one where maybe a guy was drafted low and he just completely outperformed based on ways that you guys were able to help guide him? Anything kind of come to mind?
Yeah, a bunch. I feel bad to the player names that I'm not going to say now, but
we can just say player X.
Well, two names would be Stephen Kwan and Cade Smith, two players for the Guardians that I had the pleasure of working with, I think is the way to say it. And both those guys are producing at high levels now, which is a credit to them first and foremost, but for different reasons, right? Like Stephen Kwan is the 5'7" ultra competitive performer from a big name college program that was super undervalued because he's small and he didn't hit for power. And so just his willingness day one to come in and partner with myself and our coaching staff and figure out every day what we could do to make him just a better version of himself, like his tenacity towards that, while also being the most well-liked guy in every clubhouse he's ever gone in, is just, wow, I've got a big smile on my face talking about him. And even when he got to the big leagues, it's just the keeper of the culture. And again, like, I'm competing with the guys next to me, but I'm also like, I know that their performance is critical to our success. And he just lives that every day. And from a talent and character and just any way you splice it, just am incredibly grateful to have worked with Kwani, and be fun to compete against him now. Thankfully we're in different leagues and I won't have to do that frequently, but he was just a real pleasure to be around. And Cade Smith, for a different reason, 2020 draft, he wasn't even selected. He was a guy that myself and a couple other guys interviewed as a undrafted free agent. So he picked to come to us, and we were trying to assess the same things we do with all of our players, of character, work ethic, talent, all those things. And to see him go from a name that wasn't even picked in the draft to candidly one of the best relievers in baseball last year as a rookie. That is a direct result of his care factor in all phases of life, the quality of the person he is, the way that he goes about his work with incredible intentionality, and he's a super smart individual. So again, just another player that I'm proud to have played a small piece of his growth and path to the big leagues, but was just an awesome guy. And unfortunately, we probably are going to have to face him in some late inning situations. It's going to be tough for the Cardinals, and from what I've seen. But I'll always be a huge fan of both those guys, and just happy to have played a part in their story.
I'm sure Ollie will be calling upstairs and say, "Thanks for that, Rob."
Appreciate you. Apologize in advance, Ollie.
Are you
and
so many success stories from the Cardinals at that point that it'll all even out.
That's the case. I hope that's the case. Otherwise, Scals and Ollie are going to get on me for that one.
Well, we don't want to keep you too much longer because I'm sure you're headed down to Jupiter very, very soon here. It is that time of year. But I want to just touch on this. You talked about tough decision to figure out coming to St. Louis because you had a good setup there in Cleveland, a lot of people that you loved. Your wife was from there.
Yep.
So what was the tipping point? Like, why are you here now having this discussion with us?
Yeah. I mean, that was like I alluded to, a decision that we did not take lightly. Candidly, I didn't wake up that morning that the Cardinals reached out thinking that I needed a new job. Like, I loved what I was doing and the people over there that we were able to bring in, and just kind of as a small market team, like, how do we compete? How do we out-resource? How do we out-staff? How do we out-coach? Like, that kind of underdog Cleveland mentality was fun to lean into. And, I think for me, the history of success and tradition of this organization speaks for itself. So that was something that was incredibly interesting to me. And that's everything from the fan base, even just getting to feel that, even though it was negative 20 degrees outside, and on winter warm-up, we still had hundreds of fans showing up and coming to all the events. Like, the care factor from the fans, I think, stands out. The winning tradition of the organization, and then, like, I tried to do my best, like, the things that I care about of people, and I wanted to love the people that I walk into the coach's room every day with, and just the values of the organization matched my own, and getting to know the group. And whether that was, Chaim, who I had a chance to interact with in an interview a couple of years back when he was in Boston, to Mo and Flo and Moy and all the guys that I've been exposed to here, and now working with Ollie and Scals. It's like clear that the organization has put people first, and I believe in that. This is a people business, and so all of those things together were the things that are really exciting. I think we have some talented players that are right there and are getting a chance to showcase what they can do, and there's pieces that we can work with to hopefully build something that the fan base becomes really proud of. So all those items was things that were exciting to me, but I'd also be lying if that I didn't shed tears on the way out, and have stayed in contact. Like, so many people over there are my best friends, and that'll be the case all the way till the end, and looking to hopefully meet some new best friends here and build out some results that'll be exciting.
Well, you certainly hit the ground running. I think one of my favorite lines in the organization's press release announcing your hire was at the end. It said, he will immediately begin a search for these positions. And I'm like, man, he's basically day one, and you're out having to, build the staff. What is sort of the hiring process like at this level? Like, I'm guessing that they're not posting these jobs on, random job boards. So did you have to start calling people, or because you had several positions again to fill, and I'm sure you're probably excited about the people who you brought to the organization to fill those? Yeah,
it was a long off season in that regard. I'm not going to lie. I think I am incredibly appreciative of the DeWitts investing into this space so that we could bring on some people, because we had some holes that we needed to fill. And I hope that we continue to do that over multiple years. This is just year one, but it was a lot. You're right. We're not necessarily posting jobs online. I think within an hour, we were in New York City for the ALCS when I officially verbally accepted the job. So after bumbling on the phone and crying to Chris Antonetti like an idiot, I collected myself finally. It became about we need to build a team, and who are the who are the people that I have either interviewed before or know, or what are the organizations that I think have produced really good results, and trying to then just do the mental gymnastics of what positions do we need to fill, how do we prioritize those from year 1 to year 3, and what are the organizations or people that I know in the game that I might want to try and access. And from there, it was just building lists of names, and we considered a bunch of people, and it's everything from work samples to in-person interviews to a whole bunch of reference phone calls about who are these people and how do they work and what type of standards do they live by, and just trying to do, just like a player plan, all the work on the front end to make sure that we're making the best decision, that whoever we bring into the organization, those people are going to have the right qualities, are going to help us like day by day inch towards the results that we want to win a World Series. So it was a lot. I felt like it's honestly crazy to me to think back to, feels like yesterday I had made that call to tell the Guardians I was leaving, and we're going to spring training in a week. It was in a lot of ways the fastest off season I've ever had, because we were doing so much hiring, and that is a long process, and so many of them were concurrent. But I'm glad and excited about the people we brought in, and just getting a chance to see them out in Jupiter early this week, all under the same roof for the first time, has me excited for the early part of 2025.
I know our fans are going to be excited to meet you through this medium, and I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. It was interesting at warm-up. I forget who said it, Ollie or one of the DeWitts or Mo, but different is different, but it's not bad. It's just different. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun over the next few years here in St. Louis. I'm excited about it, and even more so after talking with you today. So thank you for making the time.
I fooled you guys, so thanks for that. But yeah, you're right.
A+ on that. A+.
There's a lot of things that we should never change and will never change because of the success of this organization, and then how do we sprinkle in some new around that to just push us in the right direction? That's what I'm hoping.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
appreciate
you
it.
guys. Thanks
you
for having me.
can email the program podcast with an S at cardinals.com if you want to get in touch. Our regular monthly episodes return April 1st and run through the baseball season, but be subscribed. You never know what kind of conversations might pop up like this one today. For Rob and Elizabeth, I'm Brett. We'll catch you next time on the Cardinals Insider Podcast.